Well, it's lovely to be here. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for staying. Thank you all for not leaving yet. And thank you, Ian and Michelle and the team for organising this. I've been looking forward to it for some time. I work in the university here and I've got two jobs. As if one wasn't enough, I've got two jobs. I'm a lecturer in drama and theatre studies in the English department, and I've also got a very junior managerial role. I'm a sort of managerial functionary. I'm head of the School of Humanities. And this is kind of connected to what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the word performance, because it comes up in both of these areas that I work in. It's the centre of my field of specialism, drama and theatre studies, and it's also something that I'm doing all the time as a managerial functionary. Now, I want to just try something with you. If I say to you, well, I'm going to say to you, a performance is about to begin. A performance is about to begin. Now, I've been saying this to myself, by the way, sort of all day yesterday, and all night, and I woke up in the morning and said, a performance is about to begin. Performance is about to begin. And I'll tell you why I was doing it. It is a test. No matter how you say it, how gravely or facetiously you say it, your heart lifts. Well, my heart lifts. I hope, maybe your heart lifts too. There's a sense of optimistic, pleasurable expectation. And pleasurable expectation, as you know, is almost as good as pleasure itself. Sometimes it's better than pleasure itself. There's something really important and liberating about performance. Because performance is an action that is different from the ordinary, that it breaks orthodoxies, which is extraordinary and remarkable. So when a performance is about to happen, you think, yes, something different is going to take place. Something that confirms us in our belief that, in fact, we're not restricted and confined to the normal. There are different ways of doing the ordinary. There are different ways of doing your own identity. Now, performance is something that we think about a lot in Ireland. Well, I think about a lot in Ireland, and I think it's something which is very strong and hangs over us in Ireland because of our colonial past. There is the stage Irishman. There is that generational association of performativity and Ireland. And while this definitely does have a pejorative, put-down association. Clive Barnes, who's the theatre critic, or was the theatre critic from the New York Times, said in 1976 that Ireland is a nation of character actors. A nation of character actors. You know, one's first reaction is, we bloody well are not. You know, how dare you? There is that, I mean, this is not him alone. This is him drawing on a long tradition of the stage Irishman and a long tradition of thinking about Irish people who do performance a lot, who do performance brilliantly. And there's a very positive thing about that. There's blarney. You know, we have that word, blarney. It comes from a castle in Cork. And we do blarney, we do charm, we do eloquence quite well. I mean, an Irish person can just talk you out of the most, dangerous situation. Irish soldiers are famous for their fantastic peacekeeping abilities, and part of that is just their ability to kind of talk a situation. So once here, there's a very dangerous situation, and this chap comes in, Joe talks to you about it, and then suddenly, everything's fantastic. What are we worried about? So there is, and of course, there's also negative associations with that. I mean, all you have to do is look at the English language where these pejorative associations are embedded. I mean, if you ever have time, you know these 2 volumes of the Oxford English Dictionary, these huge volumes where the print is microscopic and you need a magnifying glass, and you have to have a very, very steady hand to read. Do you know this thing, the big 2-volume Oxford English Dictionary? But look up the word Irish when you've nothing better to do sometime, and you see it's used as an adjective. And when it's used as an adjective, it contradicts the word that it's describing. So an Irish bridge is in fact a river or a stream that's impossible to cross without getting considerably wet. You know, I mean, there are kind of ways in which you can cross it, but there's no bridge as such. Irish confetti is not what you want on your wedding day. Irish confetti consists of stones, bricks, anything that can be used as a weapon is Irish confetti. So the word Irish here is histrionic. That is, it contradicts the logic of the word that it precedes. It kind of does something performative to that word. There's also a more recent example when Irish is used as a verb. There was a 2001 episode of that, I bet you everybody knows the frame of reference, The Simpsons, you know. And there's this character, Ned Flanders. I haven't watched The Simpsons for ages, but he's a serious enough guy. Anyway, and I won't tell you how this happens, but he ends up married to a showgirl, you know. And the showgirl says to him, "Irish up my cup of coffee," which means pour whiskey in my cup of coffee. Jizz things up, please. So that word Irish as a verb now means, like if we were to Irish up this conference, I mean, what it would do, well, this situation right here, it would involve a lot more activity from you guys. It would be I suspect we'd be moving around a lot. I suspect I'd be heckled, and we won't do that. But so what I'm trying to say here very, very quickly is that even when it's used pejoratively, the word Irish to describe a certain kind of performativity, it points conceptually to something really, really valuable. That is alternative logics, alternative ways of doing things. And I think this is vital to a society, particularly a society like today, where we feel straitjacketed by economic coercion, by the idea of a recession. There's only a few ways we can do things. There isn't space to experiment. So I think this word, the theatrical sense of performance, gives us some resources for thinking differently about the society in which we live. Lastly, the other positive association of performance in a theatrical sense, and something which is very true to teaching, something we do a lot of in the university, is that it emphasizes the importance of presence, of being fully present to your audience, you know, which is what I'm trying to do now, and which is difficult work. And it's very difficult to kind of calculate. It's emotionally draining. I mean, you know people who sort of say, "How many hours teaching do you do a week?" You know, these people who pretend innocence. "How many hours teaching do you do a week, by the way?" And you say, "Well, at the moment I'm doing I do 7 hours. I do 7 hours work." And they say, "That'd be a day, wouldn't it?" Yeah. But now in the week I do 7 hours. And I kind of think, you know, they're furious with you. Somehow think you are a scrounger on the public purse. But anybody who does teaching knows that you multiply by 10 the number of hours it takes to prepare for the thing, and afterwards you're suddenly gone from being kind of effervescent and energetic to a wreck, to absolutely useless, a social disaster. You know, your partner says, "So, do you have a good day?" So, performance in this sense is optimistic, powerful, and tells us something really important about what we do in a university. I think it also tells us something important about what we do in the society. Now, I have another quick experiment for you. I hope somebody's watching the time. I'm watching the time, in fact. If I say to you, if I walk in on you, you're at work now, you're not here. You're at work and I walk in and I say, "I'm here to look at your performance." Okay, what happens? What just happened? I mean, even saying it to myself, this is the funny thing about saying things. You know, even when you say them to yourself, you go, "Oh!" I thought, "Oh God, I'm looking at you're looking at my performance, are you? Oh, I actually did loads. I did 8 hours work this week. There's a sense immediately that comes in, that sense of performance. And that's the other thing I did, this the head of school thing is about performance, and it's about working with performance management culture. And it's inevitably about a sense of threat as well. There's a sense of perform or else. Now, I was going to do a little bit more research for this talk and find out if in England or in the United States, where some of you are from, there is a show like The Apprentice, or called even The Apprentice. Let there be. Is there? That would be great, because there's one in Ireland. I mean, this is prime time viewing. People love The Apprentice. What happens on The Apprentice is you get these gormless youngsters, young men and young women, who sign up really to be bullied by a business entrepreneur and his gang of thugs who set these gormless Egypts a whole range of tasks and exercises, some of which are absurd and some of which are sort of mildly functional according to an entrepreneurial culture. And then at the end of it, they're either hired or fired. And they're usually fired. So much so that the trailer for the television show has this guy doing, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired." So performance culture in that sense. And remember, Ian, even when he was introducing the talk, the whole series of talk, he talked about performance excellence. Now, I mean, I use the same as well. We talk about performance in this completely different sense. And it's bound up with measurement and calculation and calibration. It is about, when somebody says, "I'm here to look at your performance," they're here to measure your performance. Key performance indicators. Isn't that exciting? Well, we spend a lot of time in the School of Humanities puzzling out what is the key performance indicator for teaching. Well, a key performance indicator for teaching is the number of students who emerge with a first-class honours or second-class honours. And, we're going to be constructing, you can construct a graph where you find this year we had sort of 2 out of 600 students got a first-class honours. These are fictional numbers. And next year, we find it's 1. And conclusions are drawn from that. A key performance indicator for research would be, how many articles did you, by the way, publish last year in a peer-reviewed journal? How many? How many do I hear? And so it's about assessment. And that is the way in which we are required, organizationally, to explain ourselves to our paymasters, which, for a university, is the government and the public purse. There's a huge emphasis. If you guys work in any organization, if you work in a university, you've heard about this. We recently acquired, great guy, we recently acquired a vice president for performance and innovation. There is another administrator in the university, a fantastic woman, whose job it is to do KPIs, key performance indicators. Any organization involves this performance monitoring culture. And we need to address it because, as I say, it's tied in with calibration and measurement. Now, calibration and measurement are kind of good things. We do need to count what we do. I need to be able to remember how many hours I teach a week. It's something in the range of between 2 and 8. I think it's 8, but it could be 2. One needs to be certain about these things. And that is good. And the more of that information we have, the more resolutely we can defend ourselves against a Philistine and often hostile press who view the work that we do in a university as quite useless and who want to see the university become a kind of technical school for business. And if that happens, we're lost. But the problem about calibration and measurement is that you can only measure that which is measurable. You can only know that which you already know. You can only recognize that which is recognizable. Now, part of the important work that's done in a university is about breaking norms. It's about breaking rules. It's about breaking rulers. I had intended also, all these good intentions, I had intended finding a shop that sells a wooden ruler and bringing it in, because I don't have PowerPoint, as you can probably notice that by now. And I thought, well, at least I can bring in a ruler and I can break it. Because I think the most important work in a university is about challenging those kind of norms. And they simply cannot be calibrated. There isn't a performance indicator for that. Neither is there a performance indicator for the kind of presence that's involved in teaching. The knowledge that you bring to a lecture, you can summarize and put in a note on the web. Or you can put in I can put it on a sheet and hand it out to you. But what happens in a university is a sort of passion about inquiry and about questioning. And that means using that other sense of performance, of being fully present to an audience. And it furthermore draws again on the performativity that I was talking about at the beginning. That is opening up new ways of thinking about identity, including your own identity. These can be upsetting, they can be challenging. But what they're fundamentally about is about thinking critically. So if you want real innovation in a society, rather than innovation, which is another way of kind of doing a little bit more efficiently what we did before, if you want real innovation, what you've got to have is sharp, critical thinking. And this means challenging the rulers, challenging the rulers in two senses. Challenging the rulers that measure things, and also challenging our rulers, the way in which we have accepted for ourselves to be ruled. A healthy society is one that is changing. So next time somebody says, I've come here to measure your performance, say, fine, measure my performance, but don't forget performance. Don't forget this other sense of performance. And don't forget that, in fact, what you can measure is only a small part of what is important. It's important, but it's not the only thing that's important. We need to be a lot more measured in how we measure. Well, thanks very much.